Big threats on my life by Iran. He posted this. I'm surrounded by more men, guns, and weapons than I have ever seen before. An attack on a former president is a death wish for the attacker. President Trump was briefed earlier today regarding real and specific threats from Iran to assassinate him in an effort to destabilize and sow chaos in the United States. I'm sure it's Iran. I'm sure it is. You really trust them a lot. President Trump under attack by Iran. He says, big threats on my life by Iran. He posted this, 9:47 p.m., 19 million views. Said the entire U.S. military is watching and waiting. Moves were already made by Iran that didn't work out. Wonder what he's talking about. But they will try again. Not a good situation for anyone. I'm surrounded by more men, guns, and weapons than I have ever seen before. Thank you to Congress for unanimously approving far more money to Secret Service, which, zero no votes. It was strictly bipartisan. Nice to see Republicans and Democrats getting together on something. An attack on a former president is a death wish for the attacker. And I don't really agree with the Secret Service thing. I think that they should have their funds removed until they start, doing basic, simple things like recording their radio transmissions. Might be a good idea. That way we can figure out what happened on July 13th, the real insurrection against Trump. So he's posted this. We've got our doubts about Iran. It's always Iran. Iran. McCain, it's been Iran. Remember McCain? Bomb, Iran. Remember that? He was joking about it. They want war with Iran. They've wanted war with Iran forever. And the Secret Service has been responsible now for at least one dead person and multiple injured and Trump shot in the head. And then our own useless government is like, let's give them more money and more responsibility. That's a good idea. It was catastrophic failure. And they're also lying about it. They covered it up. There's been no repercussions at all. And so since they're snubbing their noses at Congress, I guess Congress's only solution is to give them more money and more responsibility. Okay. Now, what you'll notice is here's what the campaign said. President Trump was briefed earlier today by the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, Avril Haines, regarding real and specific threats from Iran to assassinate him in an effort to destabilize and sow chaos in the United States. We haven't seen any evidence of Iran at all. We've seen evidence of a Ukrainian lunatic. Intelligence officials have identified that these continued and coordinated attacks have heightened in the past few months, and law enforcement officials across all agencies are working to ensure President Trump is protected and the election is free from interference. Make no mistake, the terror regime in Iran loves the weakness of Kamala Harris and is terrified of the strength and resolve of President Trump. He will let nothing stop him or get in his way to fight for the American people and to make America great again. Stephen Chung, Trump Campaign Communications Director. All right, so it's Iran, and it's Avril Haines. Here is Avril Haines, the DNI person. You know who is to her left? Lisa Monaco. Oh yeah, the deputy AG under Merrick Garland, arguably the person who's running everything. Then we also have Susan Rice, all just enjoying themselves with Obama blah. And you'll see here that Julie Kelly says, yeah, that Rice called Haines and Monaco, so Susan Rice called these two ladies her sisters. And now this is the woman who is briefing Trump on this. I'm sure it's Iran. I'm sure it is. You really trust them a lot. Now, here is the report from Fox News, clipped over for us from Carly Bonney, from what Fox and what Rand Paul were saying about this. Rand Paul is on the Homeland Security Committee, so presumably he's got some information about what's actually happening here.
Briefed on, quote, real and specific threats from Iran to assassinate him. Republican senator from the great state of Kentucky, Rand Paul, is a ranking member on the Homeland Security Committee. He joins us right now. Senator, good morning to you. Indeed, good morning to you. So it sounds like he has been briefed on how Iran apparently wants to kill him, and the whole idea is to essentially sow discord and chaos in the United States.
Well, you add that to the domestic terrorists that are trying to kill President Trump. That's a lot of people trying to kill President Trump. And so we have to get it right. We have to, if we can't even stop the random guy who's camping outside the golf course,
right?
If we can't do a good job of that, how are we going to stop a sophisticated assassination attempt by a foreign country? So,
yeah, the guy had electrical tape on his scope on his rifle, for crying out loud. The other guy got on the roof. Many people saw him. Nobody pulled Trump off the stage. So if you had a marginally competent actual assassin who's not a 20-year-old unknown or a pro-Ukrainian multiple felon, right, who can't even find a functional firearm, is a very low bar. And they came very close to killing Trump. So if it's an actual Iranian assassin, right, that's a real whole different ballgame.
So we've got to do a much better job. The good news is in the last week, finally, the Secret Service is saying that he's going to get the same. Donald Trump will get the same protection as the president and the vice president. And all I can say is it's about time. But, you know, we released the report today of what we've seen so far with the first assassination attempt. And it's a compilation. It's a tragedy of errors, just one after another, any one of which would be significant enough to remove that person from ever doing this job again. I mean, human error has to be fixed by removing the humans in charge. And instead, we're going to throw money at it. You know, we're going to do a spending bill this week.
Explain that to the Secret Service. They can't figure that out.
But I'm not sure that's the best thing to do. I think you have to fix the human errors that are occurring. And there were dozens of human errors in the first assassination. And I think we'll find the same with the second.
Yeah. Part of your report is going to read, the committee finds that the U.S. Secret Service's failures in planning, communication, security, and allocation of resources for that Butler rally were foreseeable, preventable, and directly related to the events resulting in the assassination attempt that day. And Senator, I've heard people say on the Republican side, they have said the Secret Service doesn't need more money, they need new leadership. Do they need new leadership, or do they just need to know what they're doing?
You know, when you have human error, you fix it by replacing the humans. You don't just give the same humans a much more money. But, you know, it was one thing after another. And really, when we began interviewing the people that were there in Butler, nobody was in charge. Everybody says, oh, no, he was in charge. She was in charge. Yeah. I was in charge of this, but not everything else. And so you ask, well, didn't somebody walk by that roof that was really about 100 yards away in plain sight where they could have a direct line at the president? Didn't somebody walk by and say, holy cow, nobody's on the roof. Nobody's protecting the roof. But you also have to realize.
And even notify that nobody's protecting the roof or communicate that there is somebody on the roof. And then another point that was brought up was, why didn't they just fire 3 shots off into the air? And Trump should have been taken down immediately, right? They would have just jumped on him and he would have avoided being shot in the head.
That the counter snipers, the good guys that shot and killed the shooter, that's the first time Trump had them. Trump had been asking for those for months and months. And the Secret Service kept saying, oh, we don't have enough people to send there, which isn't true. But somebody made a terrible decision not to have the counter snipers there. That was their first day. Had they not been there that day, the shooter would have continued to shoot. There's a very good chance that he would have popped up again, shot the president as he was being escorted off, shot the Secret Service or other spectators there. That was the first time they finally gave the counter snipers to Trump. They had refused that for months.
You know, and I wonder if because they had the counter snipers there, they denied the that particular rally drone coverage. However, the news from this report is that there was an inexperienced drone agent who'd only gotten 1 hour of informal training on how to operate it. He was trying to put it up, had to call a toll-free number, presumably at the manufacturer.
Hilarious.
About, hey, how do I run this thing?
He's on YouTube trying to figure out how to run the drone.
Apparently the shooter was smarter than the Secret Service, because the shooter ran his drone up about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and that would have been detected and stopped it. But the errors are just, you know, legion. But here's the big errors. Roof left unattended. Nobody did anything about it. But a couple of minutes, 90 minutes before this, they see a suspicious guy with a big backpack, big enough to basically fold up and put a semi-automatic weapon in. They see him with a rangefinder. Enough to stop the proceedings. That alone, if you cannot find him and interview him and you lose him, it's enough to stop the proceedings. But with 5 minutes to go, 6:06, the shooting's at 6:11. At 6:06, people are yelling, man on a roof, man on a roof, there pointing to the roof. The police at 6:08 are yelling, man on a roof, man on a roof. They're running with guns drawn to the man on the roof. And at this point, there's a broadcast, man on the roof, to everyone in the control tent. Do they get the president off the stage? Nobody. Take the former president off the stage. Nobody does the one thing you should automatically do when a man is on the roof and you see a potential shooter. They didn't do their job.
Yeah. And it's willful incompetence, because if Trump got shot, oops, our bad, we'll do better next time. But fortunately, they missed on that one. So there's a full report on this that we will be reading through. Matt Gaetz was also asked about this, and he posted this up. He said, the Iranian assassination threat is probably the most resourced effort against President Trump. So Gaetz is on the board against Iran. Says, why does Iran want to take out Trump? Because they know that they could do much better with President Kamala. And so Gaetz was over on with Greg Kelly, and they're going through some stuff. Let's see what Gaetz had to say about this.
Adequate answer. First of all, Congressman Gaetz, welcome back. How are you?
Well, it's good to be back with you, Greg. It's not an acceptable answer. You know why? Because it keeps happening, right? I mean, I had a DHS official in my office saying that you had a Pakistan-linked team, you had a Ukraine-linked team, you had an Iran-linked team, and 2 that emerged in the United States. And then just days later, this guy who is rhetorically and proverbially wrapped in the Ukrainian flag is able to lay in wait outside of President Trump's
what did he just
course.
say? There's a Ukrainian team, a Ukrainian-connected team that's out trying to take out Trump? What?
And not detected by dogs or drones or any of the assets there. So that looked like a defeated acting head of the Secret Service, not somebody ready to meet the threat that we see pretty robust out there in the world right now.
And do you think perhaps, they work for the federal government. The head of the federal government is President Biden. He has made it incredibly clear that he despises President Trump. And I've noticed from this acting director and the previous director, they had no public apology for President Trump. They actually had no words of conciliation or sorry you went through what you went through.
No remorse at all,
Cheadle
really.
said something like,
we need to do better.
He's in our thoughts, which President Trump, quite frankly, I'm sure he's in your thoughts. There's something strange going on, and I want to know if you see what I see, that the whole government seems to be kind of poisoning the atmosphere, the security around President Trump. Who knows?
Yeah, and you have to ask yourself why, Greg? Why would the Secret Service, whose principal mission is to protect their detailees, functionally failing to meet that
be
objective?
so incompetent.
And here's a theory
Weird.
that some in the rank and file have shared with me. Through all these DEI hires and through all this social promotion that's occurred at every level of government, you now have a ruling class at the top of the Secret Service and elsewhere that doesn't want to make Trump look too authoritative. And if he had the full Secret Service detail that he needs, given this very robust threat environment, well, then he would look stronger. He would look ascendant. He would look more powerful. And so we are now to the point in this country where, for the sake of optics, we're not protecting a leading candidate for the presidency and the former president of the United States. We should never do that. That's the type of stuff you see in third world countries, not in the United States of America. And if it's driven by that sinister motive rather than incompetence, it's even worse.
Yeah, so Gaetz didn't really bite on the sinister motive, but he said it's just optics, right? And I think that's really a fake because I think there's a big group of people out there, and I hate to say it, but they would be much happier if Trump were not on the game board anymore, if they could remove him from the field. And so, yeah, they'll just, oh, well, it's just optics, and it's budgeting, and it's funding, and it's incompetence, and we're going to do better. And so they always get a pass on this stuff, and I don't think that's exactly right. And I'm sure there are many good people there in those agencies, but there are many people at the FBI, Secret Service, and the DOJ who've made it a point to be as adversarial to Trump as humanly possible, and then suddenly Trump gets shot in the head. And it's so incompetent. Everything that happened on J13 was so coincidental. Incompetence after incompetence after incompetence. Then Trump gets shot in the head. You can't just say, oh, it's just mere incompetence anymore. So that's Gaetz. He's being, I think, reasonable from a political standpoint, from his standpoint. He's not going to ascribe ill will to them when they have some other explanation like optics.